Hello and welcome to Agents of Change. I'm Gemma, your series host, and we're back for the first episode of 2025. This is the fourth episode in our mini-series with Sustainable Manufacturing Expo. SM Expo is co-located with MD&M West and Westpac, and it's set to connect industrial manufacturers with the industry's pioneers who are advancing solutions to increase efficiency, productivity and profitability. You can join the event February 4th to 5th, 2025 in Anaheim, California. I'm pleased to introduce our guest host for this episode. Jim Woodcock is the head of content for MANSUS and the co-founder of Virtual Hero Media, where his team support marketing teams in the additive manufacturing and manufacturing sustainability sectors. Jim has spent more than 15 years immersed in the world of additive manufacturing. He's worked on content and strategy for the industry's leading media and events brands globally. He's written case studies, PR, white papers, articles, moderated conferences, hosted webinars, panel sessions, podcasts, videos, and more. He is well known for his love of the AM industry and his belief in the technologies. But Jim also believes that AM is in a bit of a funk. He says it's a solution looking for a problem, and that often as an industry, we spend a lot of time preaching to the converted. Jim says there is a bright future for additive, but getting there means changing the way we talk and who we talk to. So Jim will be out in Anaheim in February, not only to support the Sustainable Manufacturing Expo, but he will also be joining the AMGTA panel session where they will be discussing the real world adoption of AM. Now you know who our guest host is, I'd like to tell you about our guest. Iana Aranda is the Managing Director of Sustainability at the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, ASME. Iana sets the business strategy of a diverse portfolio of products, programs and platforms. Her work is focused on advancing engineering knowledge, enhancing technical workforce readiness, facilitating the energy transition and accelerating innovation to improve the quality of life for people and the planet. In addition to her role at ASME, Iana serves as the President of Engineering for Change, a non-profit organisation and global community of over 1 million individuals committed to applying engineering and science for sustainable development. Through these dual roles, Iana champions an interdisciplinary, human-centred approach to sustainability, driven by a prepared STEM workforce, technological advancement, entrepreneurship and cross-sector collaboration. Iana brings a wealth of experience in leading multicultural global teams and scaling impactful programs. I'm looking forward to hearing the conversation between Jim and Iana, who will both be at the Sustainable Manufacturing Expo next month. Let's get into the episode.
Iana, could you tell me a bit more about just what ASME is, who ASME are, your role in there, and what's drawn you to a focus on sustainability?
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here, Jim. Thank you for having me. Allow me just to start with a little bit of history and ground setting. So ASME stands for the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, and ASME is an engineering association. It's an association that was founded in 1880 here in the United States, where we are based, but we do have a global footprint now. And our history is quite interesting. ASME got its history when, at the turn of the century, during the times of the Industrial Revolution, the novel technology at the time was boilers. Boilers were really tremendous engines of progress, but they were also tremendously unsafe at that time and had the trouble of blowing up, which was very, very troublesome, of course, and was causing a public health crisis in the sense that these exploding boilers were killing people, obviously. So at that time, a number of engineers, actually civil and mechanical engineers, got together to tackle this major challenge, this public health crisis, and that was the founding of ASME. Right, the understanding that there was a need for standardization of this kind of technology in order to ensure its safe operation, and ASME was born out of that with a mission to advance engineering for the benefit of humanity. It's the core of everything that we do. So we've built since that history, since 1880, and have grown tremendously to serve now a global engineering constituency, continuing to ensure public health and safety, and also international trade through the suite of nearly 600 codes and standards governing anything from geometric dimension and tolerancing of screw threads all the way through nuclear power plants, right? And this also is complemented by our portfolio of conformity assessment, certification, and accreditation programs. We're also highly focused on training the current and future engineering workforce, all the way from like K through 12 programs to professional development, training, and networks, and continue to advance research and development as well as innovation through academic conferences, publications, hosting diverse technical divisions, academic journals, and also driving public policy, particularly here domestically, informing that with engineering insight. So kind of bringing that back to myself and why I was drawn to ASME. I'm a mechanical engineer by training, and what really excited me was actually ASME's commitment to sustainable development, which started a while ago. It was over a decade ago that ASME was really bullish about how they wanted to support engineers globally to improve quality of life for underserved communities through technology-driven solutions, reducing wasted investment in the social sector, and really equipping engineers with the knowledge and the networks that they need to use their skills for positive social and environmental impact. And at that time, I think that was tremendously novel. Like there was not that much that was happening in order to kind of support this growing community and this growing movement. And this opportunity to affect change really was what drew me to join as a staff member over 15 years ago and lead the development of our flagship sustainable development platform, which is called Engineering for Change. So Engineering for Change now reaches more than 75,000 members, more than 1 million followers, and focuses entirely on preparing and activating the international engineering workforce to realize the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So all of that work is really what equipped me to kind of step into the role of leading our sustainability team at large and building on the success and allowing us to start to use all of ASME's capacity, all of our levers, and focus on explicitly also climate action, right? So that's really deepening our commitment to sustainable development, but with a greater focus, recognizing that the scientific consensus around climate change is that it's one of the greatest public health threats of our time. So this is coming full circle back to our core mission, everything that we were built to do. So our approach to sustainability now is to really advance engineering and technology by integrating those kind of 3 dimensions of sustainability, which are economic prosperity, environmental stewardship, and social progress. And really, again, continue to enable engineers globally to advance that sustainability across a variety of pathways that are really critical core to us, like clean and affordable energy, clean, efficient industrial operations, and sustainable manufacturing, as well as upskilling the future workforce. Manufacturing has always been a core discipline for us. It's a core discipline of engineering, and particularly mechanical engineering. The sector employs numerous engineers, mechanical engineers, engineering technologists, and machinists. And we have technical divisions, including our manufacturing engineering division, publish a journal Manufacturing Science and Engineering, and have a variety of codes and standards that serve the industry. So we know that sustainability is a major thrust. We are dedicated to advancing that for the sector. So that is what's really brought everything to this confluence of addressing sustainability and particularly sustainable manufacturing.
Okay. So 1880 is quite old by American standards, if I can say that as a European. So you have some heritage there for sure. And 10 years ago to be starting working on this is also fairly unusual. It's, we kind of take it for granted, I think, today. And obviously, as we are recording this, we're getting the scenes from California of the horrendous fires that are sweeping through LA at the moment, which just serves only to focus the mind that this isn't something that we can put off or ignore, because the impacts are real and they're there to be seen. So I guess in terms of workforce, I come from an additive manufacturing background. That was my area of expertise. And this idea of workforce development is something that is very prominent in that part of the industry, because there has been this huge focus on the technology and the processes and the glitz and the glamour. And then when it comes down to it, what really is important is the people. So from your point of view, why do you think workforce development is such a critical piece of this puzzle for the sustainability aspect?
Absolutely. And yeah, it's just kind of coming back to what you said about LA. It's very much at the forefront of our minds, of my mind in particular. We're a month out from heading over to Sustainable Manufacturing Expo, which is, I'm flying into LAX. And I have friends and colleagues that are based in that area. It's very real. It's very real and very frightening. So kind of coming back to, what is the focus for sustainable manufacturing and what we're seeing oftentimes, it's not surprising that the focus is on the technology. It's like such an exciting time right now, such significant technological innovation. You have to be living in a cave not to be excited about, some of the potential, particularly for the manufacturing industry. There's abundance of Industry 4.0 technologies, right? They're accelerating this digital transformation for what is a fairly traditional sector typically, right? So it's enabling us to improve business outcomes, to really regain competitive position for the future. But it also is really exciting because it actually allows us to start to think about how to minimize negative environmental impacts at the same time as increasing efficiencies in our processes, which is like super, super fantastic. And again, shameless plug, I mentioned we're going to be at the Sustainable Manufacturing Expo, so I'm going to put it out there. We're going to be talking about those technological innovations. We're going to be talking about some of these novel solutions during our fireside chat during SM Expo with MANSUS. So we'll be talking about digital simulation and design for sustainability and the role of digital twins and artificial intelligence in enhancing factory sustainability. So that's all going to be on the stage. But at the core of it, we recognize that every manufacturing business wants to build a better system that generates productivity, profits, drives sustainability, and has a competitive advantage. And realizing all of these ambitions really requires that integration of these smart technologies and sustainable processes. But that really comes down to your point, to a ready, enable workforce, an engineering workforce. So we've done some research on some of the kind of evolving needs and perspectives on this a few years ago with our colleagues at Autodesk. It's on our Future of Manufacturing Research and Report, where I investigated and identified future workflows and skills needed for mechanical engineering, manufacturing engineering, and machinists roles over the next decade. And we know that one of the things that's fundamental there is that environmental impacts are often locked in at the engineering design stage. Like that's the root of it all. So ensuring that engineers are equipped to design for sustainability means that they will factor in the dimensions that are so critical, right? Like circularity or sustainable packaging, energy efficiency, or greenhouse gas emissions associated with materials or processes right at the very beginning. And that's what you need to achieve sustainable manufacturing at scale. You need those decisions to be made upfront, right? But this kind of training for these kind of skill sets, it's not universally accessible or available, and not in engineering schools, not necessarily on the job. So that's an issue. An industry is often so focused on the technological solutions, but not sufficiently invested in reducing that time to talent, right? That begins with a mindset shift of those engineers or that technical workforce, and then follows with that accessible training, right? Whether it's on the job, in the workflows, or in the classroom. So driving sustainable manufacturing and achieving those Industry 4.0 business outcomes and vision requires that these key stakeholders, particularly engineering employers, they recognize the importance of workforce development and engineers as those critical decision makers in the manufacturing value chain.
I think the analogues between additive and sustainability it's just from listening to you are insane, because AM has this opportunity to do new things, but that has to start at the design phase. That has to start really at the ideation phase. If you take a cast or a milled or a forged part and try to apply a new technology to it, you will get an outcome that is you will get a part, but it will be more expensive, and it will be, all of the downsides with none of the benefits. And I guess it's the same for, like you say, for sustainability within manufacturing. That really needs to be part of the discussion at the instance that product is kind of conceived. It's not something that you can more easily retrofit down the line. So
Indeed.
it's an education and a mindset change as much as anything, I suppose.
100%. Yes, absolutely. It's really kind of starting out the gate with that perspective that influences how you take the subsequent decisions.
It's not always easy, and we hear this a lot. It's not easy being green, as we used to say. But what do you think are the biggest challenges that organisations are facing when they're trying to implement sustainable practices into their business? Are there any sort of key challenges that you think really stand out for you?
Yeah, there's a number of challenges. So the first one, also, like not to say importance or sequence of importance, but let's just hit on a few of them. Technology is a challenge, right? Keeping pace and integrating the new solutions, the new technological approaches or emerging technologies, whether it's operations technology infrastructure or AI or machine learning, generative design, which is so powerful for sustainability, or integrated software platforms, centralized data management. These are all pain points, right? It's very challenging to keep pace and do this right and get it across your systems. The other challenge that we're seeing, particularly on the sustainability side, is this evolving regulatory landscape, both domestically for us in the United States and internationally, right? So mandatory climate disclosures are increasing across jurisdictions globally, and we see more private sector actors coming into play and really driving that sustainability agenda. But it's this challenge that they face. There's a tension around kind of meeting those requirements and ensuring that the reporting and the business processes are in fact aligned and not derailing businesses or increasing costs to a point where they're enabled to manage, right? So that's certainly a challenge, but it's also a driver for stable manufacturing, which we're excited about. But then I come back to the underlying challenge of talent. And in this case, talent availability is also a really big deal. It's a really big challenge. There's a shortage of technical talent. We just a couple of weeks ago, I think there was an infographic, an article on Mechanical Engineering magazine on ASME.org that highlighted that for every engineer in 2025, there are 3 positions available. 3 positions. So attracting the best engineering talent for employers is really a major challenge. It's a competitive process. And then on top of that, engineers that have the necessary sustainability skills to implement sustainable manufacturing practices, and you see kind of a massive talent and skills gap. And this is not just exclusive to engineering. This is a trend across a variety of sectors. So kind of coming back to some recent data, just this week, the World Economic Forum released their Future of Jobs report. Right. And that looked at over 1,000 global employers. They looked exactly at like what is reshaping the labor market globally. And they project a creation of 78 million jobs globally. So again, 78 million jobs by 2030. That can be driven by 5 key factors. So technological changes, the green transition, demographic shifts, geoeconomic fragmentation, and economic uncertainty. But let's come back to it. 78 million jobs. Many of those are technical and engineering jobs. And we already know that those are hard to fill. 1 engineer, 3 positions. So that is really concerning around where we're heading. And we're seeing the same data coming out of LinkedIn and other organizations who are looking at this and sounding those alarms about the challenge we're going to have with having access to technical talent. And across all of that, there's the skills gap that continues to be one of the most significant obstacles for that business transformation. So it's really driven by those global megatrends. Like it's really a challenge that is now becoming more tangible and quantifiable. Mm-hmm. So the way that they framed it is if there's a group of 100 people, about 59% of those people are projected to require reskilling or upskilling by 2030. But only 11 of them are likely to actually receive that. So the skills gap is real, and it's going to keep happening. And the other piece of it, and I mentioned the kind of the work that we've been doing at ASME International and Sustainable Development, is what we're seeing and what has also been shown in literature and research around the global nature of the workforce, which aligns to the global nature of manufacturing today, right? There's going to be a shift in demographics and talent distribution. So we have aging populations in high income countries and expanding working age populations in low and middle income countries, right? By 2030, parts of Africa will be the largest source of non-domestic labor for global organizations, right? And that's all going to be, of course, further enabled by digital workplaces. So we're going to see that workforce strategies focusing on improving talent management, training, mentoring skills are going to be essential for the manufacturing sector, but also that, that has to be standardized. So it's a very dynamic and challenging time with respect to workforce, and particularly for that access to the talent that's going to be necessary to transform our manufacturing sector.
And how important do you see sustainability as a driver in that recruitment? Because what we hear a lot of times, especially from OEMs, is part of the outreach. Obviously, that they are undertaking sustainable practices for all the good reasons that we know, and because of the regulation, as you point out, is kind of driving them to. But then there is the consumer pull. So obviously, people want to know that their products have been produced more sustainability. But a lot of them point to the fact that it helps them to recruit if they can show internally they are operating in a sustainable fashion, because people not only want to buy sustainable products, they want to work for a company that is demonstrably sustainable. So do you think that has a nice kind of circular benefit, really?
100%. We're seeing the same trends in our own data. We do a Future of Mechanical Engineer, ME 2024 and 2025, like consequent years plus survey of all of our constituents. And one of the top 3 issues or priorities for engineers is around addressing climate through their work and through their association. So the workforce right now is making decisions around where they choose to spend their time and who they choose to work for based on those organizations' commitment, and not only the kind of the on the face of it, but the true demonstrable commitment to sustainability. And they want to be able to do this work, right? So it's a tremendous interest. We're seeing it as a growing interest, and that's going to really shape the future workforce and how companies continue to operate. And it is absolutely, from my point of view, of course, being somewhat selfish about this, is that it's wonderful. It's exactly what we want to see. It's not without its challenges, because that's what I come back to in terms of how equipped is this workforce and what are the expectations, and how do we actually also educate employers around what is viable for those hires, because many of these individuals don't have on the surface those skills that might be immediately considered to be sustainability skills, like, I don't know, greenhouse gas accounting. But the question is, do they have enough transferable skills, and what are those key transferable skills that can be actually used to quickly upskill on the job and get them to drive sustainability outcomes? And that's something that our colleagues at an organization called 1.5 recently highlighted. And I love this term that they came up with to describe these individuals that are kind of highly desired by employers as sustainability unicorns, right? They have all the years of experience, they have all the sustainability training, and they're also really highly competent technical professionals or business professionals. But that's a fallacy. Given how quickly the space is evolving, you cannot always seek out a sustainability unicorn to hire. You have to start looking at a broader swath of the population, of the employable population, and consider what skills are truly transferable and map well onto sustainability practice.
Yeah, and it acts as a nice flywheel for those manufacturers. If they can upskill their existing staff into sustainability, then that shows their sustainability credentials, which only helps them then to recruit from this,
Exactly.
very sought after pool of engineers and designers who have 3 jobs for every time they want to go job hunting, which must be a position. And yeah, like you say, the idea of a unicorn who can basically do it all, I guess, is outmoded, because sustainability impacts right through organization. So where are the specific areas that skills and capabilities are needed based on the the research that ASME has been doing?
Yeah. So again, I mentioned kind of the work that we did a couple years ago on the future of manufacturing, and this was a large scale study that really focused on mechanical manufacturing engineers and machinists. Right, those are the kind of key roles in manufacturing, and we looked at the United States, the UK, and the European Union, and this was kind of academic review, interview surveys with industry leaders, academia, and the like. So we know that based on that work is that there's going to be an evolution of these roles, right? Mechanical engineers, we know they're going to be playing a really critical role in developing better products and designing for manufacturability and those leaner, smarter, more sustainable products. We also see a convergence happening around mechanical manufacturing engineers, and there's going to be not surprisingly, a tremendous transformation of those CNC machinist roles. So what we see in terms of the skills, unsurprisingly, and you talked about AM, obviously that's going to be highly impacted by the technologies. Those specialized technical skills are going to be really critical, right? So design for manufacturing, operations technology infrastructure, advances in AI, robotics, and energy system, particularly renewable energy systems, are going to be really critical. Underlying specializations. There's going to be an increase in demand for specialized roles. I think it's going to be really interesting. But one of the things that we're seeing is these digital skills are going to be manifested in kind of the roles that require like full stack engineers who can understand both hardware and software just very naturally and go between the two. If you can imagine the kind of role that we're seeing, particularly from that internationalization lens, is like robot teleoperation, right, for semiconductor manufacturing. Like that's the kind of future state we're looking at, right? So we know there's going to be specific skills that are also going to be really critical, and this is the purely data that we saw from surveys of engineers on the job right now and where they're projecting to be more demands for certain skill sets. So of course CAD and CAM, PLM software skills, and design for AM, design for additive manufacture, came up as like those top three. And academics are seeing also this increasing emphasis on generative design and programming techniques. So these are all projected to be the kind of core technical skills that are continuing to be in high demand, really critical for sustainable manufacturing as well. And then the other skills that are really going to be critical on the sustainable manufacturing side are a bit more broad, right? So we have just broad climate fluency, like understanding climate change fundamentals, and then general business knowledge. That's also really, really critical, right? So thinking of things like sustainable supply chain management, right? Understanding that's also a really factors into the equation. And it's the combination of those skill sets, the technical, the climate fluency, the broad business knowledge. It's really what the future is of the jobs there that are going to be in realized in 2030 and beyond, before that actually. So there's been recommendations, particularly out of that report, to increase investment in training and education to develop those like hard technical skills for current and future employees, but also combine that with those professional skills like creative problem solving, communication, collaboration, interdisciplinary skills to really to close the gaps between those job roles. The report is also focused on delivering recommendations both for educators and industry for those system level approaches to reduce that time to talent, as we've talked about, right? Like recognizing you have to really expedite that to achieve those industry 4.0 outcomes, and doing things like supplementing, degrees with on the job learning is so really critical here, so that we can really move the needle. And then last but not least, of course, needing more collaboration, right? And between those key stakeholders of government, industry, academia, to really inform how the future manufacturing workforce is equipped with the skills they need to succeed.
Yeah, I think that piece about having the business knowledge is critical because, like we always say, and a lot of people always say, the sustainability journey is one of commercial sustainability, and often that has to come first, because if the business isn't commercially viable, then it can affect no change. So it has no impact in the world because it will go bust. So you have to make the business commercially sustainable so that you can then leverage that to have environmentally sustainable initiatives. So I think that point of having both the technical understanding from the environmental sustainability side has to be buoyed somewhat with the realizations of what it takes to run a business and how to make arts, profitably, for example.
Of course, it's actually trying to drive those triple bottom line results, right? You want to see benefit to people, you want to see benefit to planet, but there has to be also profit, right? Or prosperity, right? That impact on the viability of the business and also the prosperity of the communities that depend on that business.
So as we look to wrap this up then, what are the fundamental things that you believe need to change in how we prepare engineers for sustainable manufacturing? What are some sort of concrete things that you think we can do?
So first, it all starts with you have to recognize there's a problem. And the problem here is that kind of the current methods and curricula are just not sufficient to prepare our students with the necessary skills they need to succeed, right? So we need to transform our approach to how we train this workforce. And that really only can happen with effective cooperation between academia, industry, and government to really evolve that manufacturing training. So again, I mentioned it before, and I think it's so critical, and so I'm going to repeat myself, which is like really take a systems level approach to reduce that time to talent. And that means that we have to reimagine training and align the current workflows and projected future workflows with, how we train, both on the curriculum side and kind of on the job training, and partner with industry and tech companies and academia to really evolve those approaches. So it's about kind of first and foremost industry recognizing also that they really need to embrace continuing education and training, right? And they need to invest in that mindset shift and that training. That means internal training programs. That might mean regular job and project rotations, really to expose workers to different parts of the business and allow them to have that cross-functional disciplinary perspective. We heard some really great examples from colleagues at GE Aerospace Research on how they have done this and how effective it has been in preparing their workforce and in their recruitment efforts. So there's demonstrated examples of how this is already working now. And then what we know, and this is a little bit of a kind of selfish also self-promotion here, is that facilitating new kinds of workforce development approaches happens at the intersection of those key ecosystem actors, academia, industry, in particular, and government, and needs to be facilitated by organizations who focus on these kinds of efforts, like engineering associations or workforce development nonprofits, right? That's so incredibly important to ensure that there's continuity of these efforts, that we build on lessons learned, that we cross-pollinate across sectors and industries. So this is also an opportunity for us to kind of highlight some things that we've seen work from those kind of engagements through that kind of advocacy, where industry works with academia shoulder to shoulder. They can really articulate their needs more effectively, and we can create those communication channels amongst those stakeholders to help really particularly understand where those gaps are, but also create opportunities for things like apprenticeships, something that we already do, for example, through our community colleges and engineering pathways program at ASME, where we are bringing those potentially high caliber staff that are coming out of community colleges, out of two-year degree programs, straight into the job so they can gain those skills and be employable right out the gate, right? And with the relevant kind of training. And this also requires that industry also offers up its own leadership, its executives, its leadership who can actually sit on college advisory boards or university advisory boards and teach as part-time faculty, right? To provide that real practicum in the classroom. So those are all pathways by which we can really evolve how we train our workforce. And I think it requires, the contribution of all of these actors to really drive change in the ecosystem overall at scale.
Perfect. Well, it sounds like there's a lot to do. And I know you're busy today. So Iana, thank you very much for taking the time for speaking with us. I'm looking forward to learning more at SM Expo and meeting in person, hopefully, at the start of next month. Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the time, Jim. I'm excited to also meet in person, and I think it's going to be such an exciting opportunity to connect with all of these incredible institutions, industries, and individuals who are drawn to this growing and critical sector. So I look forward to seeing you in Anaheim, and I look forward to more conversations like this. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you to both Iana and Jim for coming and sharing this conversation with us. You can hear more from them both live on the show floor at the Sustainable Manufacturing Expo, February 4th and 5th, 2025 in Anaheim, California.